Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Let me read you a list. Cunningham, Farrat, Keenum, Dobbs.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. I'm sick and I'm all in on Mormonism.
Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Did you know Josh Dobbs scored a 29 on his Wonderlic? For reference, Pat Mahomes only scored a 24. I'm just saying.
This is Arif Hasan with the Wide Left Substack. Did you know that before the show, Sam said that we need to nationalize all broadband internet utilities? Crazy.
I said no such thing. It's the Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party.
We have so much to discuss and not a second to waste. It's the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota on a post-trade deadline Thursday edition. I'm Sam Ekstrom. You met the Lukes. Luke Braun under the weather. He's gutting it out. He's a warrior. Arif Hasan joins us as well. Ron Johnson later in the show. Full panel to discuss the Vikings trade deadline moves and lack thereof. Kwesi-adofo-mensah's comments on these things. Jaren Hall's starting debut on Sunday against Atlanta and Kirk Cousins' future. We're going to try to bite off more than we can chew today. And Week 9 parlays. I'll try to expand on my healthy, ever-growing lead that I took last week. But first, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, trade deadline came and went. The Vikings hedge, the equivalent of saying check after seeing the river card. They trade for Josh Dobbs, basically a half-year free rental. And they trade Ezra Cleveland, which we foreshadowed here on Locked On Sports Minnesota, and they get a 6th-round pick. Luke Braun, from your illness, your misery, getting up early on the West Coast, gutting it out, being here, tell us what you think of Josh Dobbs.
In my acetaminophen-fueled haze, I watched some tape the other day.
There were 14 players on the field. It was unbelievable.
Everybody was blurry. What number is he?
More players, fewer livers. All right.
No, he's inconsistent. That's the reason he has not gotten more than, these sort of journeyman backup roles. He can deliver the ball, on time, in rhythm, in the universal plays. But I think because he's bounced around so much, he's learned so many different playbooks. Like if you watch the first game of the Cardinals season, they're running the classics. Like they're running the stuff everybody runs because that's what he's going to know, right? Like that's what he's going to have. Like we're running slant flat, we're running stick, we're running just the stuff everyone has because I know you had that.
What was the Hank Stram play? 45 toss power trap.
Yeah, 65 toss power trap.
65 toss power trap.
But yeah, like just the classics. So I wonder if, if you want Josh Dobbs to play, which Kevin O'Connell already said, it's Jaren Hall this week. Mm-hmm. But if you want Josh Dobbs to play, you might have to be okay with contracting the playbook a little bit just because he just got here, right? And that's what other tems have had to do as much as he's lauded for being smart and stuff.
As just got here.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So that's one concern. And then he's just not consistently accurate. He just doesn't set his feet in his base properly, and he just sprays them sometimes, and that leads to some absolutely horrifying interceptions, which I guess also Jaren Hall has some of those on his tape. So welcome to the Thunderdome.
Pick your poison. I tried very hard to find analytically what is good about Josh Dobbs, and I'm trying to account for he was the tank quarterback. He was the selected man, the mercenary who came in with a job to do in Arizona, and he did the job pretty well. He almost didn't do the job well. They almost won like 3 games in the early season. And to speak to your inconsistency point, he had 3 straight games with a QBR over 75. And then he had 3 games with a QBR under 20. So pretty feast or famine. But play action, the deep throwing, the under pressure, none of it's great. Arif, I want to make you be the positive one. Is there anything redeeming about Josh Dobbs?
Well, first I'll say under pressure relative to the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, he's surprisingly average.
Average?
Yeah,
pressure does not make his brain fall out the way it does a lot of quarterbacks.
So for a backup, that's actually extraordinary. So I'll say that. Second, I'll say he is a remarkably quick processor. Sometimes that will get in his own way. Sometimes he won't let players open up, but it is very good to have somebody because he'll move on from his reads a little bit too quickly. But it is very good to have that problem rather than the opposite problem of not being able to read plays quickly enough. And you can work with that as a coach to try and figure out the best ways to utilize, what he can do well. He is, there's always this, Ryan Fitzpatrick, with the Harvard, we always have this understanding of guys who are smart in one category or accomplished in one category being smart in another category or being accomplished in it, and that doesn't really work out. But here, there is something to be said about how quick of a processor he is. To me, actually, there is a little bit of Keenum to his game. You mentioned Keenum at the beginning, and primarily that's he doesn't take nearly as many chances as Keenum. But what I think really stands out is that he is very aggressive in ways that he can't always cash checks. He can do a lot of stuff. And to his credit, he can do a good chunk of stuff. But he thinks he can do way more in basically every category of play. He thinks he's got a stronger arm than he does. He thinks he's a little bit more accurate than he is. He thinks he's a little bit faster than he is. And his arm is fine. His accuracy is fine. His athleticism is all right. It just gets him into trouble sometimes. But the thing is, if you've got a really good receiving core, that's fine. That's you can work with that. Just like we saw with Keenum, right? Keenum was really aggressive about doing stuff that he could not capably do. But when you're throwing this to Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, that works out. When Justin Jefferson comes back, there is, the possibility that the Vikings just become a contested catch team. Not because, that's what the plays are being designed to do, but because Joshua Dobbs loves throwing tight windows and he loves throwing contested catches. If you combine tight window throws and contested catches, he ranks 8th in the league. That's just who he is. He thinks he can fit these tight windows, and that's a problem with Jordan Addison. I'll be honest, but I do think that when you've got somebody like a Justin Jefferson, you can make plays, and I would way rather have a guy who can give opportunities for your players to make plays than a guy that honestly knows his limitations. In football, knowing your limitations is a weakness.
That's true.
So,
he makes the windows tighter too. The way because sometimes he just won't put it on the right shoulder. He'll bring a defender back into the play, and that contributes to that. Yeah.
The only issue is that when you're playing with a lead, you do want him to dial down a little bit, and sometimes he doesn't do that. But
how many leads has he had?
It's more than you would imagine. But when you're in a game management scenario and you're just look, I just want you to make completions. They could be 4 yards, 5 yards. I just don't want you to make interceptions. He'll be yeah, but there's a 20-yard out. Let's take that.
Yeah.
You don't got to take that. That 20-yard out is there to open up your 5-yard dump off. Throw it to the fullback, dude.
He's perfect for Kevin O'Connell, a guy who absolutely does not know.
That's right. Yeah.
CJ Ham about to get some ham targets. Lucan, Josh Dobbs, your thoughts.
Yeah, just to echo Arif, I mean, the movement skills, for one, I think that's just going to add a whole new dimension with his legs that we haven't seen. That'll be a breath of fresh air. And then, two, like Arif said, just the ability to get the ball into his playmakers' hands more, given the setup that we got when your quarterback goes down in week 8 and you got to adjust on the fly. JJ back soon, Addison, Hawkins, etc. You just want to keep those mouths happy, right? You want to give them opportunities to go make plays. Nothing's worse than what we watched on Monday night. Jimmy G sailing go route touchdown balls over Devontae Adams' head, and he's fuming on the sideline. Nobody wants to see JJ upset before we go try and sign him to an extension next year. And so I know he's not a high caliber quarterback by any means. He's definitely got his deficiencies. Luke kind of laid those out. You get behind big, he will make mistakes. And in general, yes, he does look for the check down quite a bit. And, I will say, a lot of the league is playing these two high safeties this year, so I really don't knock him too much for that. But he gives you enough positives in the pros and cons department, the checklist, including being extremely smart on and off the field. He can digest that playbook quickly, pick up a lot of the little nuances and details that KOC is going to ask for him. So I think he gives this team a chance to compete every week, which, again, at this point in the season, for the price that it costs, basically free. In fact, I think I heard Luke mention there's actually some lingo in the deal that we could end up getting a 6-rounder, which would be a 6-rounder, which would end up being a higher pick anyway. So basically,
I was wrong about that.
Wrong. Okay, well, either way, you swap a 7th and a 6th. It's basically for free. Not a ton of options is my point at this juncture in the season. So just given that lack of options, I'm excited to see how this whole thing plays out.
Yeah, I don't think that this was a bad move at all. And I feel the same way about Dobbs as I did about before when they had Mullins. I think that Jaren Hall ultimately still gets the first crack at things and will have the right to continue starting if things go really well. Sometimes that's a big burden to put on someone that, hey, if you mess up, you're out of here. That might be the situation that they're in. But, Arif, I think that if Jaren Hall conducts himself professionally, doesn't ponder the bit against Atlanta and throw 3 picks and make mental errors, that he will get the next start and potentially the next start after that. I think that this is a game-by-game audition for the rookie.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any reason to think otherwise. I think that because what was it? It was Dobbs in a 7th for a 6th or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's a throwaway, because it was a cheap trade. The Vikings won't feel invested or obligated to start Dobbs. They just know that he's got that capability if need be. It sounds like, based on the way that they were talking, he's going to be active as the second quarterback, which tells you that they already think that he's better than Sean Mannion, which, fair enough, I guess.
And to add to that, too, it sounds like Mullins is not close. KOC was not talking optimistically at all about.
Yeah, it sounds like
they needed a guy. Like, they really needed
a body.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that the way that they're talking about him is just like, look, we've got somebody who is capable of starter quality play if we need to go there. But I think that does open the door for Jaren Hall. I think the way that they talked about Jaren Hall at the initial presser wasn't necessarily, full of confidence or anything like that. But, it was, especially because they wouldn't commit to him being a starter. But I imagine because they were like in conversation with like 8 other people, some of whom would demand to be the starter. But, the fact that they wouldn't commit to him says something. But I do think that they want to give him, that chance or that opportunity. And I think that you're right that it's going to be kind of a week by week thing for him. I don't if he strings together 2 good games, I don't think a bad game is going to bench him or anything like that. But I do think that he is basically kind of riding the line here in terms of, how much he can keep hold of that job.
Inman, is it fair to just kind of think the worst of Jaren Hall based on some of the bad stuff we saw in the preseason and training camp, or do we need to throw that out of our minds? He was working behind 3rd-string offensive lines, throwing to 3rd-string receivers. The play calling was uncreative. Do we need to sort of reset and go back to who we thought this guy was coming out of BYU and see what he can do with the starters before we can really form judgment?
Yeah, I'm taking the preseason tape with a grain of salt now because, like you said, now he's going to be able to throw to some of the best weapons in the league. He's going to be behind one of the better playing offensive lines in the league. And also he's going to be able to have an entire game plan drawn up for him and catered to his strengths specifically instead of what you always see, the generic cookie cutter plays that get called in every 4th quarter of every preseason game. So I absolutely am taking those preseason games with a little grain of salt for sure. You can't throw it all out the window. I think you got to look at what he's been adjusting to well early on. And obviously we're not at practice. We don't know how he's progressed week in and week out, but I think at the end of the day, this is his job to lose. I think the trade for Dobbs, like you guys mentioned, maybe more so the uncertainty around Mullins and his back injury and his timetable to get back. I don't know. So it feels like right now this is Hall's opportunity to go out and win this job outright, or at least buy himself maybe another game or two. If he can go out and run this offense without too many hiccups and make enough plays to win this week.
Just in, Daniil Hunter and Jordan Addison, Player of the Month honors for October. Addison, Rookie of the Month. Hunter, Defensive Player of the Month. And for that, we applaud. Luke Inman with a golf clap. Luke Braun, I want to give you a chance to talk Jaren Hall, though, before we move on.
Yeah, the thing I think that makes the biggest difference between Hall and Dobbs for me is anticipation. I think Jaren Hall is better, even just going to like the preseason tape, is better at throwing with anticipation than Dobbs is. But yeah, the Dobbs is the one with veteran experience, and if Jaren Hall comes in and falls apart and is clearly not ready, then you kind of have an insurance policy where you can get something that's at least something. But I do want to push back on the preseason tape. I think a lot of the preseason offensive futility was being behind guys like Christian DeLorio and Jack Snyder and just like instant plays breaking. And what are you supposed to do about that? When it was not even a perfect circumstance, just a sensible one. Then
one that would do your mortgage. Yeah.
Yeah. When you take home to your parents. It looked, I thought it looked better than what I saw from Dobbs in the games that I watched. That's where I'm at on that. But when, things are real against a real defense and a pretty good one in Atlanta, obviously that's a way different circumstance. So yeah, huge grain of salt with all of that. But I think he can also, get the plays off on time and in rhythm. And crucially, you do not have to contract the playbook. The way Kevin O'Connell talked, it does not sound like they're going to contract the playbook for him. And he was able to deliver on some of those staple concepts that aren't in everyone's playbook, but are staples for the Vikings. He has already shown that he can do those on time, in rhythm in the preseason.
After this, we're going to get back to Kirk Cousins. What does the future hold for him after his first major injury? We'll touch on the Ezra Cleveland deal as well. And when Ron Johnson joins, we'll hit him with some of these hard-hitting questions. But we've also got a word from DoorDash. Here is my plan for Sunday. Gonna wake up, go to the gym. Oh, did I mention Sunday's my birthday? Sunday is my birthday. Gonna wake up, go to the gym, get my birthday off to a good start. Going to come home, turn on the Vikings game. And while that game is going on, I want to get something ordered for halftime, something to treat myself on the big day. I'm going to get some Broadway pizza. I'm going to get some cheesy bread. I'm going to get it delivered to my home very conveniently and easily through the DoorDash app, because that's what I use when I need a little something, whether it's groceries, snack, full meal, jonesing for something in the late night hours. Absolutely, DoorDash is what I use. And this is what you can use and what you can get with their current offer. You get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Download the DoorDash app, enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. DoorDash is 100% the easiest and best way to fuel your Sunday football viewing. Whenever the game clock stops, that's when you check in with DoorDash and get groceries, restaurant food, snacks delivered right to your door. Once again, 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order after downloading the DoorDash app. Enter code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. DoorDash. All right, Ron Johnson momentarily. We're going to talk Kirk Cousins, and I want to remind folks to check out the 24/7 YouTube live stream here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Wolves, Wild, Vikings, Twins, Gophers talk around the clock. And, hey, play a little roulette, tune in, see if you can find the Minnesota Football Party playing on there. You can also find the Minnesota Basketball Party, the Ron Johnson Show, and the Friday Roundtable. So as we await Ron, let's get the ball rolling on Kirk talk. Arif, you weren't here Monday, so let's go to you first. Kirk Cousins' future in flux. How do you see the offseason now playing out with him in light of what's happened?
The way Kevin O'Connell talked about him, it almost seems like it's a lock that they're going to extend him. Like that was so strong, especially from like a coach who doesn't have, the actual hiring and firing power, right? He was just like, yeah, Kirk's going to be healthy again. And he basically said, we're going to ride with him again. It was crazy. I don't know that Kwesi is as on board as O'Connell is, but I feel like O'Connell wouldn't have spoken so strongly. So before those statements, I would have said it is a confusing mess to try and determine what's going to happen with Cousins' contract and how they're going to negotiate, figuring out what the future of that is going to be. Just because, he's coming off of O'Connell said it, basically the best year that he's had as a quarterback. And then he gets injured, and then you're just kind of like, well, I don't know what to do with all of this information I have available to me. It would have been nice to just kind of play it out. And where the team is at as a franchise might play a role, but now it just sounds like the Vikings really just want a couple more years of Kirk Cousins. I know that that's going to frustrate people who want something new, frustrate people who, are really jonesing to get one of those rookie quarterbacks that are always so exciting. Which I hate the Vikings have one of those right now. I guess he's going to play, but not the same thing. I get it, but yeah, it very much sounds like they're going to try and work out an extension, which of course with Cousins is a unique challenge given his requirements for guarantees and the difficulties his contracts present in terms of not being able to push cap forward with restructures and stuff like that. So going to find that interesting, but now it just seems like it's more likely than not that they'll find some sort of long-term solution for him.
I could not think, and maybe you guys can, of a comp of a quarterback this age, so not a Dak Prescott, not someone young who gets hurt in a contract year, someone this age who gets hurt in a contract year, and what happened to that player. If you can think of one, let me know. But let's bring in Ron Johnson to add to this conversation. He's the host of the Ron Johnson Show, at 3Ron Johnson on X, and he's sporting the number 8
there it
jersey.
is.
Is that a Sam Bradford jersey, Ron?
Yeah, it is. No, it's
no, it's a Todd Bauman.
It's a Greg Coleman. It's the Greg Coleman original.
There you go.
Beautiful.
No, it's the Kirk Cousins jersey they gave us for the Vikings pregame show, and it felt ceremonious to put it on today. I'm debating on even putting it on Sunday as a tribute to Kirk Cousins during Sunday's pregame show as I drop down the Ron Johnson's 3-minute drill of a play breakdown.
He's still alive, right?
Hey, I had my Kirk on for the post game.
Hey, with all the conspiracy theorists, that might be a plant. That might not actually be the real Kirk Cousins. We might have planted a quarterback.
They cloned him. They DeMar Hamlin'd him.
Exactly. He's not real. Just saying that, that lady on the plane, that, but back there,
not real.
Not real. You guys might want to go down with this team, but I'm not. I'm getting off this.
The real Kirk wouldn't have gotten hurt.
Sentimentality, Ron, is a very strong emotion and is going to play into the future of Kirk Cousins because he was playing fantastically. We love a good comeback story. Mm-hmm. And ironically, the Vikings were very unsentimental when they brought in Kirk Cousins because they could have gone back to Teddy. They could have gone back to Case, but they went with Kirk. They were very unsentimental. So how do you think all of the emotions around it plays into Kirk's future with the Vikings and Kirk wanting to come back to Minnesota when he might have offers elsewhere too?
Yeah, you're looking at a Zimmer-led organization when quarterbacks get hurt. He didn't care about quarterbacks. Kevin O'Connell adores quarterbacks. He was one himself. So honestly, too, when you look at what's out there, I think this next couple of weeks, we're really going to see what life is after Kirk Cousins. And I think this is going to be a true test to people understanding. Forget the heart. Look at what the man has done. When you look at it, we always talked about this. When Kirk Cousins was doing this wrong, so expected completion percentage versus actual completion percentage, and I hate all these dumb stats like that, but I'm talking about the simple throws, the simple completions. There were times where Kirk Cousins should have had a higher completion percentage and people bashed him. Oh, Kirk Cousins taking the easy stuff. He's not throwing the deep balls. He's not aggressive. He's not this. Then all of a sudden he gets JJ, he gets Jordan Addison. He's super aggressive. He's he's throwing the passes that we didn't expect. He's slipping through tackles and sacks, and he's finding places in the pocket to throw the ball sidearm. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, whoa, who is this guy? And some people, like on the national stage, RG3 and some of those guys, they're giving Kirk Cousins credit. But then you still got the people that just hate on Kirk Cousins that don't want to let go of the old Kirk. Like people are like, they was like, oh, this is what Kirk was. He's always going to be that. People can change, clearly. And so Kirk Cousins, I feel like, has changed. He has understood. One, he also understands, like, look, I'm not going to lose my job. And if I do, who cares? Like, I'm about to go out here and just have fun. And that's what it feels like Kirk is finally doing. I think at one point in his career, he was ultra conservative because he wasn't getting the second and third contracts. He wasn't seen as one of the top quarterbacks. So he was just trying to manage the game. Now he understands, like, I can be a winner. I can be the guy. I can throw interceptions and I'll be okay. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Braun, what do you got?
What do you think the rest of the season does for this? Because I feel like there's something to look, if they win 2 games from here on out, and like that might change the negotiating platform where Kirk can come in and say, look how much you need me. But if they go 500 and Jaren Hall looks halfway decent, and then they're looking at him as maybe a bridge and maybe a like, do you think that has an outsized impact on things, or do you think that a decision is a little more made than that?
Look at the thing. Everything has a decision to be made. There's always a reaction and then a reaction from that reaction, or every whatever action has a reaction. That's what it is. And so if you look at the action of him going 500, the reaction probably is like, Kirk probably could have won 12 games or 11 games or 10 games, whatever the number ends up being. And some of the games we see down the stretch. Again, you look at the Falcons, and I watched the Falcons on film. Their second down defense against the Titans was abominable. I don't even know if there's a better word for it, but when you look at how and maybe Will Levis is just good. I'm not going to hate on Will Levis. But Will Levis made them look stupid with some of and it could be the play calling. It could be the system they ran when they saw second down and they understood, let's count the numbers in the defensive backfield. That's going to be part of my 3-minute breakdown. But that's Will Levis, quote unquote, shouldn't be in the league, quote unquote, not really good. Mike Vrabel didn't even really want him, was pushing the Malik Willis train. And then all of a sudden, Skid goes on throw for 4 touchdowns. Well, then you look at Jaren Hall in that same aspect when he comes into this game, and I'm going to show ways how the Vikings can use him to use his skill set to his advantage versus the Falcons. If he can get the ball out of his hands quick, he takes 3 strep drops, and then you go into the next game and the next game. And again, we don't have a tough game up until, in my opinion, with Kirk Cousins up until the Bengals. Now, who knows? But if they can find ways to use his skill set like Jamie Foxx in any given Sunday and say, look, you're not Cap. Al Pacino found an offense for Jamie Foxx. Well, you look at Jaren Hall. Kevin O'Connell now has to be a mastermind. He has to find an offense that fits Jaren Hall, because Jaren Hall is not Kirk Cousins. So long answer to the truth to it. If they suck, which is going to suck for us as media, as fans, people in Minnesota, if they suck, then yes, Kirk Cousins, you can say, look, y'all know y'all got to pay me, so figure this out. If they go 500, or if they find lightning in a bottle and Case Keenum this thing, and all of a sudden they're back in the playoffs as a high, like a 3-4 seed, 5 seed, because they'd be right behind the Lions. If they're a 5 seed, then they're playing, they're probably playing the Falcons or the winner of the NFC North or NFC South. Like, that's a winnable game if you're the 5 seed in the playoffs for the NFC, because you're going to play the leader coming out of the NFC South. And then he wins that game, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hold up now. They have a chance to go play maybe the Eagles, and then that's a different conversation. Then is it like, hey, if this is his team, what could he do with his team if you build this offense around him? That's going to be the problem with this. That's going to be the long-term problem solution. Because Kirk Cousins doesn't want to come back as a backup. He doesn't want to come back as a mentor to Jaren Hall. So I think that's going to, and then is Josh Dobbs just the backup to Jaren Hall? Then you move forward with Josh Dobbs as your backup, because they have similar skill sets. And now this Jaren Hall's team. So yeah, I think wins and losses are going to matter in the Kirk Cousins, future with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. That would be a really bad beat for the people who want the Vikings to lose for better draft selection, like for better draft position to pick a quarterback,
right?
Only for them to endure all those losses and then extend Kirk.
Yeah,
they lose every game. They have the 8th, 9th pick in the draft, and then they're like, Kirk, we're going to give you another $50 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's exactly the pain that those people deserve.
They could still give Kirk $50 million and draft JJ McCarthy in the second round. Like JJ McCarthy could be, sit behind Kirk Cousins. We know he's good at stealing signs. So what better backup quarterback to have than somebody who can like scout another team for you and figure out the Falcon signs? Like JJ McCarthy's learned from the best in Harbaugh.
It's good enough for Belichick. It's good enough for me.
He's already dropping in the mocks. He's going to be there.
So we're not high on Hendon Hooker. That's what we're saying.
Controversial topic on this here show.
Yeah, wait a minute now.
The jury's still out. The jury's still out.
Still on pup. It's
I recently received something in the mail, Ron, that I won on eBay. It was an absolute back and forth bidding war, $13.81. It was something, though, that reminded me of your days in Baltimore. And that would be a limited edition 2002 Upper Deck condition signed by the legend Ron Johnson. I just want to know if you were sitting down and signing this card specifically, Ron, number 160 out of 550. Remember this photo shoot? Because I can't think of a better mean mug than what you got going on right here. Do you remember that, Ron?
If that's a sticker, yeah, I do remember we signed those stickers. I can't remember if that's a sticker over the card, but yeah, I do remember like me, David Carr.
I just got jobbed.
I think it's a sticker over the thing. I don't think we signed the actual cards. I think we signed like little placards and they put them on the cards. But yeah, it was like me, Carr. Who else was in there? Javon Walker was in that room with us. Antoine Randall. Like there's like 10 of us in a room, and literally we sat there for I don't know how many. Like it was like a good hour or two just signing a bunch of crap, and they paid us they paid us a decent amount of money. I'm not gonna say how much, but they paid us. I mean, just imagine David Carr was there, so he got paid.
Oh, big time.
I'm just gonna say David Carr for like one sitting. I think they paid him like $75,000 to sit there for like an hour and a half or 2 hours.
That's not bad.
I've always been curious how much
good hourly wage
guys, how much they paid these rookies.
Yeah, everybody we had the same agent, so that's the only reason why I knew David's number, because we had the same agent. So my agent just kind of told me like, hey, you're not gonna get David Carr money. You're not getting 75, but here's your number. And I was like, okay, for 2 hours, I'll take that. But yeah, I remember that because I walked in and I met Dave, and he had the surfer hair, looked like he has been putting mousse in it for hours, trying to get it to sit straight. So yeah.
This is such a coincidence because this week I also found a Ron Johnson football card.
Oh my God.
On the web.
This one, fantastic.
Stop it.
This one has a nice it has a nice paragraph about you, Ron, on the back. Ron received his way into the Gophers record book, becoming the school's new career leader for TD grabs, receptions, and receiving yards, all ranking among the top 10 in Big Ten conference annals. Ron also set a new single-season school mark for receiving yards in 2001 while earning the team's MVP award.
Look at that.
Should have spent money on gas.
No. Don't say that, Ron. This is an investment. 401k.
The appreciation rate.
Ron Johnson signed.
It's like buying a Beanie Baby.
Cards. Best $13 I've ever spent.
It'll go up to about $14. Don't worry.
There you go.
You'll make 75 cents on that one.
This word's going right here.
Well, I mean, the card's useless now, right? Didn't Tyler Johnson?
Pretty much. Tyler Johnson got one of the records. Eric Decker got the yards. Yeah. Only thing I'm holding on to is I still have the NCAA record for catches consecutive. Every single game I played in, I had a catch. So that's the only thing I'm holding on to. But it's going to get beat because now these kids play 12 games. So even if they don't make a bowl game, somebody can beat it with 48 games. So
yeah,
we'll see.
5th-year guys coming in.
Oh yeah, that was the most annoying thing was Chris Altman-Bell in his 7th year almost got it. Like he was at like 41. And I'm like, come on, man, this is year 7. Like, stop the bull. Like, I'm all for it. I'm a fan. Chris is my boy, but I'm like, dude, 7 years. Come on now, man. Stop playing with me. And then, then he played in the game though and didn't get a catch because I know they were trying to like get him catches even though he wasn't healthy. But yeah, he played in the game and didn't get a catch, so then it ended. But I'm like, come on now. I'm like, he also missed games to injury. I'm like, I never missed a game. And they're like, oh no, it's just consecutive games he played. And I'm like, get out of here. Stop that.
Yeah, I think the NFL
Come on, get out of
consecutive games of the catch record belongs to Antonio Brown. So I'm going to add that to the list of comps to Ron Johnson.
That's right.
Oh man,
We were choosing between Ron and Antonio when we were looking for a host.
I never want to be in that same conversation with Antonio Brown. 10 years ago, maybe. Now,
a little tougher.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we could bring this back to football if you want. Who would you rather have, Jaren Hall or Taylor Heineke?
Ooh. Well, we know what Taylor Heineke is. Like, we've seen him against the Washington Commanders in the Vikings game, and we've seen him have some great games because we know he goes on buys the Jordans after he wins a game. I don't know if he's still doing that or not.
100%'s doing that.
He still hasn't gotten those purple Jordans yet, though. He hasn't gotten the purple Jordans. He hasn't beat the Vikings. It's like Thanos out here trying to collect stones. He needs the Power Stone from the Vikings. For those that don't know, the purple is the Power Stone. I don't know why I know that. It's sad.
You're a nerd. You can
the red is the Mind Stone, but it's really not a stone. It's a sloth.
Hey, the value of that card just went up 50 cents.
I had to pull it out of Jane. But he's waiting for the Viking Stone. So if I had to pick, honestly, I would pick Jaren Hall for his escapability. We saw it in the preseason. We haven't seen it in the game yet. Him sitting in the pocket too long and getting a strip sack fumble, I think is just a young guy coming in nervous, not knowing what he should and shouldn't do. I hope that Kevin O'Connell has been beating it into his head this week of, hey, if you don't feel it, if you count because like if say it's a 3-step drop, the way I've always been taught or heard has been taught, and for receivers too, to like kind of know like, okay, it's time to maybe escape if you're still covered, like run your route and then boom, boom, and then uncover. Don't just stand there and look at the quarterback like, oh, is he going to run? Is he going to get sacked? And so for Jaren Hall, it's got to be on the 3. If he stops the hitch, I don't have it, go. On the 5, stop, hitch, and then go. And so I hope he gets that, because if you hitch, you're going to get sacked. Like, you don't have that many in the 5-3, so it kind of goes in the 7, it's kind of reading it. If it's a play action 7-step drop, you read it, you see it right away. If you have it, throw it. If not, you go. And so that's where Jaren Hall's got to get that clock, because he is considered technically an escapable running quarterback. And so if you put him in that category of guys like Josh Allen who do that really well, Russell Wilson earlier in his career, Aaron Rodgers his entire career, that's where Jaren Hall needs to be. He needs to fill that pocket like there's nothing there for me. Let me just go get 6 or 7 yards. And I think that's the key. If you watch the Michigan State Gophers game, when they went from one quarterback to the next, the rookie or freshman quarterback was a runner, and the Gophers could not figure out when he was going to run, but he had that clock in his head, and he killed them in that drive. Now, he didn't come in until like the 4th quarter, thank goodness. But that's where I see Jaren Hall being effective. When you look at the way the Falcons drop linemen in the coverage, those guys can't run the way some of the linebackers can, and their backers are really helping out in coverage. I don't know why the Titans went empty and they left like 2 to 3 backers in the game. And so they think their backers, like their backer covered DeAndre Hopkins, dumbest decision ever. But that's how the Falcons play it. They're playing it where they don't see numbers, they just see schemes. And so you might see Jordan Addison being covered by a backer, and that's where Jaren Hall has to understand to take advantage of that.
Ron, we'll leave a little meat on the bone for the roundtable tomorrow. We're hot up against our time limit. We'll talk Falcons predictions tomorrow. We'll talk a little Ezra Cleveland. We didn't get to that. And we'll talk to you with Reggie Wilson and Julia Daniels and the Kirk Cousins swag on his back. Ron Johnson. He's at 3, the number 3, Ron Johnson. We're really serving the YouTube viewers today.
I wonder if Kirk Cousins is going to let people sign his cast, because I want to sign it.
Cast.
Yeah. What cast?
He's got the purple cast. So when you were a kid, you used to get your cast signed.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
You never did that.
I never had a cast. Actually, well, I take that back. I did, but it was on my nose, a broken nose. And
they put a cast on your nose.
No, they did. There was
such a Sam cast.
There was a cast on my nose for 2 weeks. It was terrible.
So you look like you just looked like you were going to the beach every day.
Yeah, it looked like from a distance. It just looked like I loaded up my nose with sunscreen. That's exactly what it was. It wasn't fun. Ron, we'll talk to you in the round table in the morning.
Appreciate it.
Perfect. at 3Ron Johnson on X. We love him every Thursday on the show. We're going to get a word in from a partner. We'll do 10 seconds each on Ezra Cleveland and then make our parlay picks. Luke, tell the people about Prize Picks, my friend.
Yeah, today's episode of the Minnesota Football Party brought to you by Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. But it's not daily fantasy the way you may be traditionally familiar with it. It's a little pared down to make it a little bit simpler and easier to win, because for me at least, daily fantasy is not a fun game anymore. There's too many sharps putting in crazy outlier scenarios in these pools of 600,000 people, and I don't want to have to do a whole lineup. If I think a certain thing about a quarterback, I don't want to also have to put a kicker into that. I just want to do the thing on the quarterback, and that is what Prize Picks is for. They set an amount, and you just have to decide more than or less than. It's you against the house. Pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players, and whether you think they'll do better or worse than their Prize Picks projection. You can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100 or use code LockedOnNFL. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. For an example of this, check out Locked On Vikings on Fridays, where we do our prized picks every week.
All right, when an offensive lineman gets dealt for a 6th-round pick, we take 10 seconds each to address their career and exit. And we're going to call it, we're going to lump this into...
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
The 40-second drill.
Oh. Who is that?
Luke Braun, go.
Let's see. He didn't get... I think they could have maybe negotiated more out of this, considering that he's a bona fide starting player on the offensive line. But obviously, Dalton Reisner played well enough. They felt pretty comfortable doing this. And after watching the game, I get it, but I do think the Vikings got a little worse.
13 seconds, not bad. Arif.
Average-ish guard, but only 1 year left on his contract, getting a third-day pick. I don't love the trade, but I don't think it hurts the Vikings that extraordinarily much. Plus, I don't know when Chris Reed is coming back, so they may have more depth than we think they do.
Yeah, didn't love the compensation for a guy who started 45 straight games entering his prime, but feels like a move that was going to happen either way, no matter what they could get back. I'm thinking about the future now, what happens next year. I think they offer Reisner a cheap 1 or 2 year deal that he probably won't take and say come back and compete with Blake Brandel, for the job.
I forgot about Chris Reed's return. He offers depth. Blake Brandel offers depth. I'm totally fine with the depth situation. Just wish it could have been higher than a 6th-round pick. Would have even been happy with a 5th. That's Ezra Cleveland for you. And now our parlays. And now it gets fun, boys. You know, we were all tepid. We were all walking on eggshells. We didn't want to bet too big. We didn't want to make too big of a splash. Well, now you have to, because your boy used his advantage to win a $1,300 prize last week, and he's now at $2,002. Arif is in second with 1116. Braun 705, Inman 650. Our weekly parlays begin now. A minimum bet of 90, maximum bet of 900. I'm gonna bet low, aim big. So I start. I'm gonna do something completely random. Browns Cardinals. Probably the unsexiest game of the week. A field goal attempt will culminate the first drive. A field goal attempt. One of those quarterbacks is not getting in the end zone. But a field goal attempt will end the first drive. That's my first leg. Next is Inman.
All right, my first leg, I'm going to go with Rashee Rice over 3.5 catches at -130. I don't know if Jalen Ramsey's back this week or not. I don't really care, to be honest. Chiefs system moves everyone around constantly, and all this guy does is catch 4 or 5 balls every game. So Rashee Rice, 3.5 catches over -130. Mark me down.
Sorry. Next one up is Arif.
Okay, I've not been keeping track of what everybody has picked. So
you almost certainly are not going to get a duplicate.
Oh, okay, great. Geez. Okay, I'll take Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown because I've been taking that most weeks. It's been working out for me pretty well. And then also, God, I hate these spreads so much. I think I'll take Texans -3. No one else is taking that, right?
No.
All right, cool. Let me figure out real quick what the math is on this. I almost took Dolphins.
Not to double back, but I wasn't going to take that, so that's fine.
Cool. It's plus 272. I'm taking the minimum this week, whatever that is.
Say that again.
Plus 272 for the minimum.
Wait, did you make 2 picks? Did I miss it?
Yeah, Houston Texans
Yeah.
-3 and Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown.
I wasn't going to take either of those, so.
All right, you're doing minimum
Yeah.
because you're trying not to lose. You're playing. This is the PJ Fleck kind of bet at plus what?
Well, I mean, the only thing that happens is whatever happens to the loser. So.
I realize that. At plus what? 232?
272.
72. Thank you. Luke Braun picked twice.
So I'm sticking with the Vikings 1-score game magic, even though they broke the streak. The Packers, I think they're right back to their ways. I'll take an alternate spread total points double. Vikings plus 5.5 and under 37.5 points. I think this is going to be like one of those 16 to 13 games. That's plus 250. And then the second leg will be Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown scorer, which is minus 145 for a total of plus 491. And I'll put the minimum on that to win minimum 90 to win $442.24.
All right. We already have Arif locked in. Let's go to Inman.
All right, remember last year when I ran with the Jags win or lose for like 8 weeks in a row? Because my theory was like, all right, they're not going to lose twice. And if they do lose twice, they're not going to lose 3 times. That worked out great for me. Well, last week, bear with me, stick with me. Last week, I missed on the Falcons-Titans under 36.5 because Will Levis went off. So this week, I'm just so tempted to run it back on the under tonight. Short week, Thursday Night Football, which Thursday Night Football notoriously known to have a terrible, crappy game every third week or so. Rookie quarterback, second start, defenses start to adjust. He's on the road in Pittsburgh. They're getting Cam Hayward back. Pickett stinks. 36.5, though, is so low. But I'm going to do it anyways. Under 36.5.
Like how you're like, and Vegas has accounted for all of this, but...
Keep in mind, Vegas.
36.5.
Sam,
crazy.
It's so low, dude. It's disgusting. Sam, internet's down, obviously. So you're going to have to punch this in. But I'm going to up the ante. I'm going to go with $200. I got to get back on the board.
All right. I'll figure out what the odds are after this. I got mine pulled up, so I don't want to mess it up. I've got I think that the Raiders, having shed Josh McDaniels, are going to have a huge performance against the Giants at home. Devontae Adams will get a get-right game for him. I'm pumping the spread up to 6.5 and taking the Raiders by a touchdown against the Giants. That paired with my random field goal attempt in the Cardinals-Browns game, betting 100 to win 1439, plus 1439. It's nice to have a lead. Nice to have a lead in this game. Those are our parlays, and that's our show. Luke Braun, Locked on Vikings. Luke Inman, all the postcasts, Wolves, Gophers, Vikings. You can catch them last night talking Wolves over the Nuggets, and you got Arif Hasan. Subscribe to his Wide Left Substack. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on the Locked on Vikings feed. We'll talk to you in the postcast after the game Sunday and on the party next Monday.